Well, hello there. Hope you're doing good, and welcome. The man found it difficult to approach the living individuals to greet them, but the other party not only did not reply, but also cautiously drew a gun from their waist. In this end-of-the-world scenario with zombies, there are just a handful of remaining humans. Due to the shortage of food, trust among individuals has vanished. Andy and his family have been floating on the boat for 2.5 months to stay alive. Even though remaining on the boat is quite secure, food is the main issue. One day, Andy spotted a deserted yacht and took the boat to check if there was food inside. To ensure safety, he cautiously used a mirror to examine the situation inside. After checking that everything was normal, Andy headed to the cabin and was fortunate to discover plenty of food, which was sufficient for them to survive on the boat for several months. Yet when he felt pleased about it, there was an unexpected sound in the room. But Andy did not let it bother him and went back to the ship with a box full of food. He had no idea that his wife Kay was in serious danger due to his negligence. Realizing her husband had discovered food on the capsized yacht, Kay quietly went to the yacht while her husband was asleep, and the goal was to locate a shaving for him. Consequently, there was an additional sound in the room. Kay felt upset and turned back to go, but sadly it was too late. He wasn't sure how much time had passed, but Andy was stirred by his daughter weeping. He was just about to head to Kay with his daughter in his arms when he spotted a puddle of blood on the floor, and a terrible feeling immediately washed over him. Andy opened the bathroom door and found his hurt wife tending to her injuries. The frightened husband still didn't understand what had occurred until Kay removed the countdown bracelet and placed it on his wrist. He realized that a zombie had bitten his spouse. 48 hours left until Kay turns into a zombie. But Andy remains calm. He quickly starts to pack a bag. As per the map released by the government, there are 8 stations established on land, and perhaps there is a remedy for the virus there. The family promptly set out. However, the land was far more perilous than fishing vessels, and they always needed to remain vigilant. Fortunately, they didn't need to walk far before they discovered a car. But just as Andy was refueling the car, Kay spotted a zombie approaching this way. She wished to alert Andy but was scared the noise would bother the zombie, so she could just activate the turn signal. Andy noticed it and immediately grasped his wife's intention. Before the zombie leaped at him, he hurried back to the car. A foot of floor gas swiftly away. But shortly after driving out, Kay discovered her injuries had been smeared with a lot of zombie blood. This is a step towards becoming a zombie. To avoid hurting his family, Kay wishes to exit the car and depart. Noticing her so upset, Andy had to pull over and reach his wife, who was prepared to go. Kay understood her fate and realized there was no remedy. But even with this, Andy still did not wish to surrender. He compelled his wife to assist her into the car to prevent her from doing something foolish and intentionally damaging the door handle. They kept moving toward their goal. However, shortly after setting off, the accident occurred once more. A zombie unexpectedly showed up in the center of the street, so Andy instinctively avoided and unintentionally got into the car accident. Kay was a tree limb thrust through the belly, and Andy also slipped into a coma due to the massive impact. When Andy awoke from the coma, he noticed a word inscribed on the car door. His wife's face was smeared with zombie blood, and it didn't take much time for her to change. He aimed to soothe his scared daughter, but was unintentionally bitten by his wife, who had fully transformed into a zombie. After removing his daughter from the vehicle, Andy strolled back once more. He needed to send his wife on her final journey with his own hands. After completing everything, Andy plopped down in frustration and let out a shout of rage and surrender. He considered departing with his spouse, but for the benefit of his months-old daughter. At minimum now, he can't simply quit. He chose to remove the bracelet from his wife's hand and place it on his own. And after modifying the 48-hour timer, Andy started off once more with his daughter on his back. Since prior to the mutation, he had to rely on someone he could trust with his daughter. On the way, his child kept weeping. He applied his wife's old perfume, sprayed around, and his daughter recognized the familiar scent and instantly ceased crying. Nonetheless, right now, Andy spotted the offender of their vehicle collision. But when he was ready to grab a stick to deal with the zombie, all of a sudden, Thummy halted him. Just look at Thummy with a pointed, stone-cut hand. The zombie detected the blood right away. This zombie is also quite near the Thummy. She has a unique method of having her loved ones close to her. Andy then kept walking toward the aid station as shown on the map. At last in the darkness, when he successfully arrived at the destination. However, this location is somewhat distinct from what he expected. It is quite dim inside and seems like there are no people. However, observing the surroundings, he unexpectedly discovered Etta seated in the corner. Observing the injury on Andy's arm, Etta handed him a basic bandage and informed him that this was no longer a support station due to the quick transmission of the virus. It has been eliminated by the government for a long time. Andy wished to hand over his daughter to Etta, but then he noticed her take off the wig from her head. She was taking medicine, seemingly afflicted by an untreatable illness. And Andy abandoned the idea. The following morning, she bid farewell to Etta and moved on with her daughter on her back. During the journey, he noticed several zombies with their heads stuck in the ground, and once they went by, the zombies would be awakened. Andy quickly spotted a truck and was curious if he could operate it, but he didn't anticipate the owner being present. It ended up being a zombie group. However, the noise of gunshots drew in additional zombies. Vic was sadly stuck in the pit. He requested Andy to assist him. Surprisingly, the zombies showed up not far off. After receiving the keys to Vic's vehicle, Andy quickly entered the car, pressed the gas pedal to rescue Vic, and left before the zombies showed up. Vic then brought Andy to a gas station where he and his spouse resided, and the two appeared to have a positive relationship. The initial action Vic takes upon his return is to present Lorraine with the necklace he discovered. However, these are merely surface level. Vic simply turned away. Lorraine was repulsed and tossed the necklace away. Andy was confused. Andy simply sat down to take a break, and Vic brought him out to explore, and he had no option but to hand his daughter over to Lorraine. But he did not anticipate Vic to show him how to improve his shooting skills. A lot of zombies were gathered by the cage in front of him as if something was drawing them in, but Andy did not ponder it much. He swiftly dealt with all the zombies under Vic's guidance. However, as they approached, Andy understood that the cage was containing Thummy. Thummy is precisely what he encountered earlier, and Andy believed he could rely on this couple with his daughter. They exploit others' lives for entertainment and are definitely not kind individuals. Lorraine was looking after her daughter when she unexpectedly discovered zombie blood on her body. She immediately grasped, but she did not decide to speak out, but to wash her daughter's clothes and hang them up to dry. Andy returned to witness this scene and realized Lorraine already understood he was infected with the virus. In comparison to Vic, this Lorraine is fine. He could trust our daughter to her. At the conclusion of the evening, Andy ultimately made a choice since he was short on time. After hesitantly bidding farewell to his daughter, Andy stepped outside by himself. He grabbed the government-issued ejector needle and got ready to end his life. At the crucial time, Lorraine unexpectedly showed up with her daughter in her arms. She understood what Andy was doing and that he was affected by the virus. However, when Andy requests her assistance, Lorraine states she cannot look after her daughter. It appears that she and Vic are not in a relationship, and Vic has taken the life of her true husband. If you truly wish to look after your daughter, you ought to take her out of here. Listening to this and Vic's behavior throughout the day makes Andy even more certain of Vic's nature. It appears that the suicide needs to be postponed. Andy unexpectedly remembered the family he encountered at the river at the start. They have 2 daughters who might be able to assist themselves, so he chose to bring them there to test their fortune. However, right after he mentioned that, Vic unexpectedly showed up and struck Andy on the head. When he gets up, he discovers he is confined with Thummy, but it won't be long until he becomes a zombie. Andy needs to discover and escape, and the zombies are coming this way, gazing at the plump sausage dangling from the cage. Andy had a strategy. He would secure it with a rope and toss it to the front. The undead were drawn to the past in the rush for food when they managed to open the iron door. Employing this approach, they managed to get out from the inside and strolled to the gas station. Quietly enter the room to rouse the slumbering Lorraine and then take their daughter. Prepared to go, Vicky, who was snoozing like a pig, didn't see, and they got away from the room. They were just about to enter the car when Vic emerged from the room with a shotgun. Lorraine attempted to prevent Vic from firing, but was hit by Vic as soon as she extended her hand. Vic was ready to pursue them from above, and Andy had no option but to flee. They hurried to a cave. they ultimately got away from the pursuit. And an upset Vic continued yelling outside. They did not have the courage to make a sound. Shortly after Vic departed, they needed to wait until morning and then leave. Nonetheless, late in the evening, Thumbie was stirred by an unusual noise. She grabbed the flashlight and discovered Andy licking the blood off the stone wall. He was slowly turning bloodthirsty. Following sunrise, Andy goes back to normal and carries on with his daughter and Thumbie. However, while strolling beneath a tree, Thumbie paused. The initial zombie was Thumbie's dad, now has been slain by the clan and interred in this tree. Thumbie completed the prayer to his dad. They kept hurrying. However, not for long. Andy felt unwell. Right now, just 9 hours remain until the full change into a zombie. Following a difficult battle, Andy slipped into a coma and dropped to the ground. Thumbie lifted his daughter, and after he got better, he departed for his destination once more. It was difficult to locate the family, but he discovered that the man was excavating a grave for the family. And only after approaching did he understand that a zombie had also bitten him. He wished to entrust his daughter to them, but he never anticipated such an outcome. The man suggested to Andy that he should take his daughter out of this life and mentioned he would provide him with 2 bullets. Andy didn't think twice about turning around and leaving. Shortly after he departed, he heard the sharp noise of gunfire from behind him. The man first shot and killed his wife and daughter and finally committed suicide. Andy picked up the man's pistol and sat dumbfounded, wanting to end his own life. But his daughter's cry of "Dad" made him give up this idea again. Thumbie carried his daughter over to Andy, told him that his clansmen were not far away, and asked him if he would go with him. Thumbie's words gave Andy hope again. If he could send his daughter to their tribe to raise it, the best choice. So he decisively agreed, and they immediately set off. But when they crossed the cave, many zombies were gathered inside. Thumbie said it was the zombies sleeping. They like dark places like the zombies buried in the earth, so do not disturb them would be fine. But looking to go through the tunnel, I did not expect to see Vic when they were about to reach the exit. Vic seemed to have found something slowly walking towards the side to attract each other's attention. Andy put Thumbie and his daughter to settle down, then went to the back of the van and shouted Vic's name, then hurried to hide in the crowd of corpses. But to find Andy, Vic begins to kill zombies. But at this time, Andy is ready to fight back, see the next as his own. He decides to shoot at Vic, but unfortunately did not hit the vital. Weak Andy was instead Vic knocked to the ground, and then Vic found the 2 children in the car. Without saying a word, he pulled Thumbie down, beat her, and then picked up Andy's daughter. Andy dragged his exhausted body to get up again, and when he came to find Vic, did not hurt his daughter. It turns out that Vic was seriously injured due to a gunshot wound. In the last moment of his life, he chose to be kind. Thumbie is also fine, a little delirium due to a head injury, and at this time, Andy is gradually losing consciousness. He holds on to his sanity after walking a distance and finally cannot hold on, putting his daughter down just a few steps out. Andy fell to the ground and stood up when the zombie blood covered their whole face. He kept using his hands to wipe, trying to keep himself awake, seeing the rotting meat on the side. He couldn't even resist his appetite. Looking at his daughter, Andy thought of a way. He'd take a little carrion and Thumbie's support to continue to walk hard. When he couldn't hold on, Andy immediately stopped, tied the carrion to a branch, and told Thumbie. Andy said a final goodbye to his daughter and then put her on his back to prevent himself from hurting them. Andy put braces on his mouth and tied his hands securely. After doing all this, Andy also turned into a zombie, but he still did not stop. At this time, killing zombies in front of the clan is ready to leave. Suddenly heard the sound of a baby crying. They turned around to see an incomparable shock scene. As the mist in front of them slowly dispersed, a strange figure appeared in front of them. A zombie carrying his daughter and their clan under the guidance of rotting flesh to continue to cargo. As a father, Andy completed his last mission after saving the 2 children. They also send Andy's last ride. At the movie's end, Andy's daughter is brought back to the tribe, and the tribe loves this child. A clan member inadvertently found a word of thanks in the child's abdomen, which is the father's last love to his daughter, but also to express his gratitude to the clan who adopted his daughter.